That is something that we're watching today, even as we keep an eye on the United States, which is today setting the stage for renegotiating the free trade deal for North America. A public consultation begins today to review CUSMA, as we call it here, the Canada-U.S Mexico Agreement. It is starting just a day before Prime Minister Mark Carney and a Canadian delegation travel to Mexico to talk about trade. Anis Haidari is in Washington with more on the focus for these discussions to come. Good morning, Anis.
Good morning, Heather. So we are hearing that the U.S. Trade Representative is going to have 45 days of public consultations, and that'll be followed by a public hearing in November. And it's really going to be about just how well what they call the USMCA is working for Americans. Canada tends to call it CUSMA, but whatever you call this, the new NAFTA, basically. This free trade deal is months away from its 6-year anniversary of taking effect. It's not so new, really. And by July 2026, there have to have been reviews by all three countries, Canada, the U.S., and Mexico, in order to renew this continental free trade deal. But this step by the United States to initiate these consultations, it may be a very initial move towards renegotiating or changing the free trade deal. Donald Trump has praised this deal in the past, sure. I mean, his first administration negotiated it, but he has also criticized CUSMA a lot, and he's added new tariffs to both Canada and Mexico. And so while these consultations are meant to mostly be for Americans, there will likely be some Canadian groups weighing in as well. The Canadian Chamber of Commerce, for example, has said CUSMA cannot be allowed to unravel. In a statement, they said, our economies are deeply integrated. Manufacturers, supply chains, and service providers in both countries depend on this partnership to remain competitive and prosperous. Now, if CUSMA isn't renewed, this deal goes into a sunset period ending by 2036. And that might sound like it's far away, but many industries make deals and choices based on decades-long timeframes. So this move by the United States to start this consultation process, it might be just another day in the status quo of trade, or it could be the starting point of even more negotiations and even more change. We're at least likely to see lobbying and on-the-record discussions about what the U.S. likes, doesn't like, needs, and wants in this free trade deal, Heather.
And what's at stake when the Prime Minister visits Mexico, Anis?
Well, CUSMA is a three-way kind of a deal, of course, right? So Canada and Mexico are also at the table. And it's not that it is a separate deal between Canada and the U.S. and Mexico and the U.S. All three parties have to agree on what they're signing when this comes up for renewal. So while these consultations are U.S.-based, they are a part of how all three countries have to review and agree to renew this deal by July. So what's next for CUSMA is definitely going to be a point of discussion for Prime Minister Mark Carney and Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum later this week. Trade is already on their agenda. What the Americans want to change in CUSMA will have to be something that Canada and Mexico also discuss amongst themselves as well. This is not two separate agreements. All three sign the same deal. So America may be consulting with itself about what it wants, but Canada and Mexico are going to be consulting with each other about what all three countries need and what they might need to change to keep Americans at the table. That renewal deadline of July 2026 will likely loom very heavily in the room as Canada's Prime Minister visits Mexico. Heather.
Anis, thank you for everything this morning. I appreciate it. Anis Haidari there in our bureau in Washington.